Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew. Alan Seiler.
Hello, everyone.
Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And we're joined this week by special guests from Elaine and Matt Watch TV.
Yay!
Elaine Sweatman.
Hello.
And Matt Sweatman.
Hi, guys.
Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
And folks who are listeners to the show will know that we have the Sweatmans on. They've been doing some rewatches, or I guess in Elaine's case, a lot of times it's first-time watches of Star Trek, all the way from chronologically from the beginning from Enterprise. And we've been having them on the show periodically to give their opinions and thoughts and what Matt's view on the rewatch and what Elaine's view on the new watch. And this time we're going to be talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 4.
Ooh.
But before we get into that, it's the holidays. And happy holidays, everybody.
Woo! Hello, everybody.
So we
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, and we thought it'd be fun to show off some of the Star Trek goodies we got over the holidays. Alan, I know you got some stuff.
Yes, I do. I have 3 things, and they're all really spectacular. The first one is the U.S. Cerritos Crew Handbook.
Ooh.
It is so cool. It's got lots of stuff from each episode. It's got lots of stuff from each character. Oh, it's so great. And then the second one, which I'm super excited about because it's very new. It's just come out. And it is Nana Visitor's book, Open a Channel. And it's all about the you got one too?
I got one too.
Yes, I get that.
That was my thing.
All about the women and the women characters in Star Trek. And this thing is huge and really nicely illustrated. And it's a nice big hardcover. And I'm really surprised by the size and the quality of it, but I'm super excited about reading it. And then the last thing is this game called Star Trek Cryptic. And I don't know anything about it except for what I've read in the thing. And it sounds really cool. It's you have 3 sealed missions that you have to complete, and each one takes place aboard a different ship, and you have to solve puzzles and goals and stuff like that to complete each mission. So I was thinking it would be really cool. Like the 4 of us get together and play it together and live stream it.
I think that'd be fun.
Oh, wow.
I think that'd be an amazing idea. So yes, Star Trek Cryptic coming soon in between releases of new Star Trek episodes sometime in 2025.
Well, usually we'll get together and do a live show together around the time of our anniversary, which is coming up here pretty soon. So I think that'd be a good time. And actually, 200th episode coming up. So
200.
That's another idea. So,
That's right. That's right. So that's my haul for this year.
Awesome. Now we did get a whole lot of stuff for the holidays for Christmas or anything, but we did get a new shipment of Lower Decks shirts that just came in.
Of course.
From the Lower Deck T-shirt Club. And so we thought we'd show those off.
Yeah, so I gotta say, so far this year, I'm not super impressed.
Uh-oh.
Well, I think this is pretty good. This is a pretty good one.
That's cute. I
We
like it.
have a Boimler head.
Half a Boimler head. Yep. Beautiful.
And a Tindy head in the same style.
I love a Tindy head.
There was another one that came with the Boimler head, and I don't remember what it was, and I can't find the shirt.
I feel like if one of those was Rutherford, it'd be a couple's costume.
Yeah, there you go.
And this one is kind of cool, but I really hate shirts that have like a patch on the front and the entire design on the back. But this one has a little delta on the front, and then the cool, like, it has a Cerritos on the back, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
But in previous years, they would the shirt was themed with the episode. So like I have one, like Lancelot was the little ferret. Ferret? Yeah, was on it. And then Chuck's.
Whatever. Tagana 4.
Yeah. So it used to be themed in relation to the episode. So far this year, not at all whatsoever.
We're not signing up next year.
I think if you do, you know, it'll be a much lighter shipment.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. And that's what we've got. Now, Matt and Elaine, did you guys have anything that you got over the holidays you wanted to show off?
That we bought ourselves. It's not their gift.
No, you got one, Elaine. You got one.
I have one gift. I am wearing it. It was a Lady Gift Exchange, and it is my kitty cat Star Trek T-shirt.
Aw.
We had the Kitty Cat Star Trek calendar 2 years ago, I think. So I was like, oh. But then we are ready for 2025 with a new daily calendar.
Nice.
And we're going TNG for the monthly calendar. So
Very
now,
nice.
is that just all of TNG?
because
you might be spoiling yourself.
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then I bought myself this shirt that says, I'm trying to figure out the camera this way. Fascinating.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
So that's what I have bought.
Well, awesome. Well, glad everybody had good holidays. Got a few Trek items in there. All right, so let's get on talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 4. Now, with a lot of these, Matt, you've already seen it. Had you seen Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 4?
A few hundred times, yes. It was the peak of my Star Trek obsession and around the 25th anniversary, because the second part of the season is 91, which was the 25th anniversary year. So this was the very height of my Star Trek fandom back then.
How about you, Elaine? Had you seen it before?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I'd seen any of these episodes.
That's cool.
Even
Wow.
Yeah. I'm envious of being able to sit down and watch Next Gen Season 4 for the first time fresh. That's awesome.
Well, you did that.
Once upon a time, but not really.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, exactly.
Well, let's start off with some impressions. I mean, how is the show holding up for you? Having recently watched season 1, season 2, season 3, how is season 4?
It was good. I was gonna say it was good, but season 3 I think was better, but that doesn't mean this one was bad.
Yeah.
It just
season 3 is a high bar.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Especially compared to like 1 and 2, and then 3, and then 4 is just kind of like, I'm trying really hard to be.
Yeah,
3.
season 3 also has, like you said, it has the advantage of following the first 2 seasons, and it's such a change in the quality of the show and like the style of the show changed. And so I think that adds to it a lot too, but also just some great stories. Matt, what is your overall opinion of season 4?
Well, at the time I thought it was right up there close to season 3 level.
Yeah.
I was really afraid that it would drop, in my opinion, more so than 3, and to a little bit it did. But just when we were preparing for this episode, going episode by episode, it's like, you know what, this season did not have that many duds. Even maybe not season 3 level consistency, but still it's still pretty consistent. So yeah, it still holds up pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And when you talk about some of the highlights of this season, there are some really big high points this year. There are some episodes that I really, really love, and we'll get into those kind of specifics. Yeah. So I have a question for you two. And, Chuck talked about going into season 3, how noticeably different the show is going from 1 and 2. All of a sudden, everything looks different. The production is different. You have a different, it's almost like they're using different cameras because everything looks different. Do you know of, or did you detect any big changes going into season 4? Was there anything that caught your eye as being different from what you had seen before?
No, I didn't notice anything.
Visually, no. It did seem like there was a little bit more of a thematic connection between this season, so it seemed like they did try to not exactly serialize the series, but there was more connective tissue from episode to episode than there had been before.
Okay. Good observation.
Yeah, the whole family, there were a lot of family episodes for the different characters. And so while it wasn't linking them all together, it was families in general. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we're not going to go through the seasons episode by episode because we'd be here the rest of our lives. But I mean, I do think starting off with Best of Both Worlds Part 2 and Family, I mean, it's pretty notable. Like the start of this season. I mean, for one, it's the second part of probably the most famous Star Trek cliffhanger of all time. But also Family as a follow-up to it, which is so unique for Star Trek, but it really just for television at that time. I mean, what did you think, Elaine? I mean, you got to recently watch the Best of Both Worlds cliffhanger,
Yeah.
not knowing for sure what was going to happen next. I mean, what did you think of the part 2?
Well, I have to take back something. I had seen both of those because didn't they release them in the movie theater?
Yeah, and
The
they
Best
cut
of
them.
Both Worlds, and but it had been a while, but I had seen those but, but I had not seen Family. So I knew even after seeing part 1 at the end of season 3, I knew Picard was coming back because I don't know that there wasn't going to be a season 4, 5, 6 without.
Right.
That would have been.
And you've seen Star Trek Picard by this point, so.
Yes, I have. I've seen. Yeah.
Spoiler.
And so it was nice to see in Family the vineyard and everything that is in Picard, because then not that it didn't make sense, but I understand it more in Picard with the chateau and the vineyard and why he's so tied to it because of the episode Family, So yeah,
it's so unusual for television in the early 90s and for sci-fi and for Star Trek in particular to have a follow-up episode that's really just exploring a character's feelings about the big episode that just happened. I mean, you don't usually see a character like going through their trauma like that and having a chance to like literally cry in the mud over what has just happened to him. I mean, that's not something that TV heroes would have the opportunity to do a lot at that time. And I mean, that's an episode that I think is pretty powerful to watch. And I mean, obviously Patrick Stewart knocks it out of the park, but I mean, there's some really intense scenes in that between him and his brother. And I love that the show acknowledges what he's just been through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something you didn't get a lot of, in television at that time, because everything had to be standalone, so there wasn't always an episode that would follow a different one that shows the consequence of something that had happened in the previous one. And at the time, I will say, I thought that it was a bold move, but not a good bold move necessarily. When you have your season 3, which really sort of ramped up at the end and ended on this massive, tense action episode that leaves you on this incredible cliffhanger, and then you launch your season with the conclusion of that, where you've got this big space battle and everything is adrenaline, and then like second episode of your season, you stop and go to a vineyard and roll around in the mud. And I thought, oh my God, it felt like they were losing momentum.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that is such an important episode.
Right.
And they do come back to the trauma that, happened to Picard in this thing once or twice after this, but it's really dealt with in this episode in Family, really, really head on and in a really brave way, I thought.
Well, and I don't know that they could have had an episode like this if somebody else had been playing Picard beside Patrick Stewart. Because it would have to be somebody at his same kind of level and acting, because I cannot imagine William Shatner doing that episode at all.
I can see Shatner doing it.
I could see
completely different form. Like, it would not make sense, but like I think it being Patrick Stewart that helped lend to the seriousness of it, and
I think it's a very modern way to do it. I mean, ahead of its time. I mean, today we have shows that deal with mental health. We deal with it's not okay to be okay. Our heroes are shown to be able to show weakness, show vulnerability, and we believe them to be stronger for the expressing of it, for them moving through it. Back then, the comic book superhero, next week, everything's normal. Well, anybody goes through that kind of horrors, that kind of trauma would not be normal. And so I think it's very healthy that they did it. I applaud the show for being a little bit ahead of its time in that regard.
Well, and even now, 30 years later, I mean, shows will get criticisms if the main characters cry too much, if the heroes cry too much. I mean, that's a common criticism of TV shows. And I mean, we've discussed that on our show, and I mean, it's come up in Doctor Who recently. I mean, it's people have opinions about that, obviously, but I'm not saying that no one ever cries too much on TV. But what I'm saying is that it is something that it still can be a risky move today, having your lead character or your hero of your show that type of vulnerability, but particularly in 1990.
Yeah. But I think it was a in a sense, a one-off isolated thing. And I think that what it did was emphasize just how horrible his situation was in that previous two-parter, where you couldn't just walk from that. I mean, it's like that time when you have an episode where Worf has back surgery and the next week he's up and running around, and there's no dealing with the physicality of that kind of injury and that kind of procedure, where he should have been like off his feet for at least a few episodes. Deal with him in that situation, but that wasn't the case. And so in this one, had you had Patrick Stewart just go from the end of that two-parter and into like the next adventure, it would be so cheap. It would not have earned the kind of expression of trauma that that kind of situation would bring. I mean, it's a really, really important episode.
Right.
Well, and also in a way, it may also more define the horrors, because you may have watched and be like, "Oh, that was terrifying," but then you don't really think about it, and then you see the aftermath, and you're like, "Oh, that was like it dawns on you too that was not a good situation to be in." So
yeah.
And how Picard is perceived by others in Starfleet, that resonates throughout Deep Space Nine, throughout the Drumhead episode later this season. It's something that just isn't ignored. People in Starfleet see him differently for having gone through that. And again, that's good storytelling in that there are repercussions for these events. It isn't just everything's like it was before.
Right. Okay. Well, looking at the season, Elaine or Matt, whoever wants to go first, what is an episode that jumped out at you on this rewatch in particular, of just one that was either better or worse than you thought, or just one that really impressed you?
I've always liked The Wounded. I love Bob Gunton as I can't think of his name, but as introduced the Cardassians, Mark Alamo playing a Cardassian for the first time. O'Brien has probably his best episode up to that point, easily. It's I just thought at the time I loved the idea that we were seeing characters who had been through, they talked about battles, and it's always, the wars are always happening before we're watching the show. We very rarely, until Deep Space Nine, we very rarely see the wars happen while we're watching the show.
Right.
But we always have this discussion of Starfleet having been in wars before. So it's good to see like some collateral damage from some of the people who have gone through it, and some of the results of that.
Right. Yeah, and this was a key episode. I mean, it's sort of in the build up towards Deep Space Nine, like in the lore, the introduction of the Cardassians and having Mark Alamo play a Cardassian, like you said, and O'Brien's backstory, becomes key later, which that really could have been an episode of the week's thing, kind of like how you had like in Balance of Terror, where Styles' family had the history with the Romulans. Like this could have been that kind of a thing, but thankfully they picked up on it and carried it forward in future episodes as well, which is really cool. I love that Star Trek is at this point heading in that direction.
Yeah.
I like Brothers.
Okay.
Because it was really fascinating to see Brent Spiner play all three characters around each other too. Like it was interesting to see how different he can be. Kind of not the same person, but it's variations of a, So I enjoyed that. I also love Cupid, but it's new in Robin Hood, so you can't go wrong with that. So.
It's a fun one, definitely.
And we saw it not too long after seeing The Adventures of Robin Hood, too. So
the movie from 1938, and so like the sword fighting scene when they're coming down the stairs, it was almost like step for step from a scene from that movie. It was like, wait, we just watched this,
Yeah.
When we rewatched Cupid on our show, I think we were all surprised how long it takes in the episode before they get to the Robin Hood stuff. Like that's like what my memory of the episode is, just the Robin Hood stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like only the second half of the episode, basically.
Yeah.
But like, it's so fun. All the good action setups come from that part. All the good quotable dialogue comes from that half. I mean, it's so great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think it often gets misremembered as a holodeck episode. And it's not.
Yeah.
No.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's not.
Good old
Yeah.
Q manipulation.
That's right.
Well, I think I'd seen pictures from it before, like, and so in my head, I was thinking it was a holodeck because I'd not seen the episode yet. And so then when it wasn't, I was like, going, oh, okay, no holodeck. So.
Yeah. So, Veronica, what are some of your faves?
Cupid.
You like Cupid?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking back at the names of the episodes, that's really, other than The Best of Both Worlds and Redemption, that's the only one where I could be like, oh yeah, I know what that episode is.
Mm-hmm.
All
you
the
don't remember
others,
Data's Day?
I mean, I do kind of remember it, but not
Yeah.
well enough. I remember Cupid better.
Because Data's Day is a very well remembered episode where it's following Data and he learns to tap dance and
Oh, that's right. I do
yeah,
remember
and
that.
it's got the whole thing with that's the one where Keiko and Miles are getting married.
Okay. Okay. That's coming back to me.
Okay.
My brain did not associate the title of the episode with what actually happened in the episode.
That it was a day about Data, and the title didn't.
I don't remember what happened in Data's Day.
Elaine, what did you think of Data's Day?
I enjoyed it, but I do remember the dancing, the learning how to dance scene. That because it was like the overhead camera. It was a different camera angle, so you could see everything.
And not their faces.
But yeah. Well, that had to have been Gates McFadden because I know she did all the choreography. But and it was almost like Data. Not that he was worried, but he was like the wedding. Like he wasn't worried about it, but he was trying to do things correctly. Be prepared. Yeah. So which takes me to an episode that I liked what Data was doing, but I didn't like a certain character in theory, where he was dating the crew member.
Yes.
Because my thought was, you work with Data on the ship, you know he's an android, you know he's not human, and you're getting mad at him for doing what he thinks is the correct way to behave as a human in a relationship. You can't get mad at him. I'm sorry. You knew what you were getting yourself into. Stop. I was getting mad at her. I was like, it's all your fault. So.
I mean, when you're emotionally invested in something like that, it's hard not to, react in a human way, even if you are reacting to a non-human entity.
True, but
I mean, if you get into a relationship with a door, if it swings the wrong way, you might get upset. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's one of those ideas. I mean, they obviously the folks who made the Orville, that was a memorable episode for them because they really picked up that and ran with it. But I would have loved. I know TNG wasn't that kind of a show. It wasn't that type of. It was still week by week television. But I would have loved to have seen that as an ongoing thing on the show.
That probably would have worked better too. Just little bits here and there instead of, having Data not really crash and burn, but just sort of.
I love the little detail at the end where Spot comes up in Data's lap, like Spot knows that. Okay, the cat instinctively knows when someone needs a little bit of affection, even if he is an android.
Yeah. So, do you think Data was emotionally moved by the situation, or do you think that he was not?
No,
I've seen different interpretations of that episode.
I've been of the opinion that he is more emotional than he thinks he is on some level. I mean, it really is like you have the episodes where they tick up the emotion. Like, okay, this is the episode where he gets betrayed. We see that this season, and this is the episode where he tries out a relationship. And so it almost feels like he's got this checklist of human experiences. Okay, today it is time to try out the human. And when he decides, we're having a lover sparrow or
spat,
yes, coral. I was trying to combine two words that didn't work. But when he was coral, when they were having a levels coral, and he says, "Well, maybe it's you," and he's like very over the top angry. that was odd. It's like, okay, you're trying something
Someone's
out,
been watching
Data,
too many thick romance episodes.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite landing like you think it's going to land.
Chuck, what are some of your highlights?
The drumhead.
Oh God, yes.
The drumhead is a phenomenal episode. It's one of, if not the best Star Trek courtroom episode. If not, it's up there. And one of the ones that feels the most plausible, because oftentimes in a Star Trek courtroom episode, like your ex-girlfriend's the judge and your best friend who's not a lawyer is your lawyer.
Where have we seen that before?
You know what I mean? And you're accused of a crime. But I love the way that this played out, where it started off just as sort of some suspicions that didn't really seem irrational, like this guy is secretive about his past and so forth. But then as it ramps up over the course of it, and it really just, like, the court takes on a mind of its own. And I love Picard in that episode. And I love anytime that you get an opportunity for Picard to sort of stand up for his principles. Patrick Stewart plays that so well every time. And he didn't know it at the time how many memes he was spawning. But I think the drumhead is just a wonderful standout episode.
It's exceptional. Yes.
Yeah, I like the way that I can see the moment where Worf turns on them, because he was very much on the side of the prosecutors. He was very much helpful. He understood the need to ferret out the enemies. But the minute they start accusing Picard of being in on it, because Picard's his Chardich. Right. That's his father figure. It's like, oh no, okay, you are without honor. I am completely against you now. I love that moment.
And it's one of those episodes I watched when I was young that just seems more and more relevant as I get older, because you see these sort of situations arising where it starts off as a suspicion that might seem reasonable. But then, spirals out of control. We've seen that a number of times just in my adult life. Those sort of things happening. Where I love that I watched this sort of thing when I was a kid. Because there's plenty of times. There's plenty of times watching the news where I feel like I saw it on Star Trek already.
That's true.
Yeah.
So two of the one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna throw out one more, but if you want to throw
no, go do it.
Now I just lost her. Oh, First Contact. I was going to talk about First Contact, because First Contact is a phenomenal episode. And it really sets the stage for like the Star Trek philosophy on contacting, warp capable societies. Also, it's just a really entertaining episode, and it's so different stylistically for what Star Trek had done as far as alien planets, because it seems so much like the alien planet was Earth, more so than in a lot of Star Trek episodes. And I love it. I think it's just a phenomenal episode. Yeah,
agree.
That's the one with BB Newworth.
Yes.
Yeah. She was awesome. Yeah.
Well, that one scene was played up for comedy. But it's interesting though. The episode starts out, and it pretty much is told from the perspective of the planet.
Right.
It's not from the perspective of the crew. So that is a very unique structure to an episode.
Yeah. I've got so many favorites from this season that I certainly can't touch on all of them, but I think two of the ones that I love so much, and I don't think they're necessarily like going to top anybody else's like list of favorites or best ofs or anything like that, but I just love them so much with just the passion. And the first one is Remember Me.
Okay.
Where maybe I'm not the one that's crazy. Maybe it's the whole universe.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that episode so much, where reality basically shifts around Dr. Crusher, and to the point where, anything where like people disappear, like if you turn your head and then you turn back and that person that you were just talking to is gone. I love that so much, because it's such a freaky concept. It's something that would throw you off, and especially as people are subtracted from the equation, the rest of the equation doesn't know anything about those people. So she is the only person aware of any of this stuff happening. And man, I love that episode. And the other one is Future Imperfect, because I love what if type of episodes. I love glimpses into the possible future. And I love the way that Riker is given all these, he's like, he thinks thrown into a future setting, and he has to sort of, like, I've lost all these memories and I have to adjust to, and as the audience, you're learning all these little details about the world that you think that he's in. And I love it so much. And then it changes. Then it shifts to where he's being manipulated. He's being like tortured by Romulans. And then that changes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's not my favorite Riker episode. That's coming up in a season or two. But this one is one of my favorite ones because it's such a clever premise that keeps you guessing and you have no idea how it's going to end once it finally gets to the end.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest negatives about Next Gen is that they never came back to that character.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That would have been cool.
Yes. Once or twice. You don't have to like make him a crew member or anything and make him main cast or anything, but just have him there once in a while. Just do something with him.
Yeah. But speaking of coming back to things, I mean, using Minuet as the clue that the way he figured out it wasn't real, that's inspired, because that's even for Next Generation at the time, that's a pretty deep pull. It's from an episode seasons ago.
Yes.
The fact that he knew, and the audience, if you're paying attention, knows that that's a holodeck fantasy character of his. But it seems plausible that, this alien child reading his mind could mistake that for a person that would be plausible in his memories. But I love that little detail. One, that it's a reference back to Star Trek, but done so well. It wasn't something earth shattering. It's just that he recognized that face and like, that doesn't make sense. I think that was a great move.
Yeah. And as much as I love things like family and brothers and stuff like that, I love when Star Trek is fun. And both of those episodes are ridiculously fun for me. Just like Cupid is.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Hey, let's take a quick break for about a 30-second promo. And then when we come back, we'll continue talking about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4. So stay right there.
Look up. Look down. Look out. Here come the monkeys.
Mickey.
David.
Mike.
Peter.
We're talking about them in Monkeying Around. That's right. Monkeying Around has everything, including
Interviews.
Episode reviews.
Album discussions.
and other incredible surprises.
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
And we're back.
There you go. I figured all three hosts of that show are on with us tonight. So what better promo to play than that one?
I couldn't agree more. Well, we've talked about some of the highlights of Next Gen Season 4. What's a real stinker for somebody?
I had one. What was it?
Oh, I have one.
It's not a stinker. It just it didn't do anything for me, I guess. And that was The Lost, the one where Deanna. I guess part of it is I'm looking at it through a different way. Okay, because
The wrong way.
No, listen.
I tease.
I'm hard of hearing. I've worn hearing aids for almost all my life, so I don't have all of my hearing. And so for me, somebody to complain, I don't know. I didn't like the way she. No, I can't figure out what I'm trying to say, because she just, like, without her empathic powers, she just felt like she was nothing. And I get that's a big part of her, but at the same time, I'm like, you can still be a person when you're missing something in a way. And so maybe that I'm looking at it from a little bit of a different perspective. It's like you're not a whole person just because you're missing the ability to do something 100% or at all. And so maybe that's why I'm looking at it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But I liked the way that it was depicted, though, where Riker walks up behind her and she's startled, and she's never been startled before because she always knows that someone's walking up behind her. I thought that was a really cool little touch.
Yeah.
And I love the way the Riker kind of calls her out for being aristocratic. I love that.
Yep. And surely that's not true.
Well, I got another Troy episode that's one of my least favorites.
I was having a hard time.
Night terrors. I do not like night terrors at all. Her floating with the whole weird cloud.
It does not look great, I'll tell you that.
I just, that's all I can remember from that episode, and maybe it just stamped on me. It just reeks of cheap sci-fi to me. That's just my opinion, but
I can see that. I won't argue against that one, but yeah, it's not great. I do enjoy it just because it's, kind of hokey and B movie-ish, but
Well, Alan, what's not the best that you don't like? I'm just kidding.
Well, I'll tell you, the one that I really people seem to love this episode, and I think it's kind of a dud, and that's Devil's Due. It's just it's okay.
I always forget that Devil's Due is a season 4 episode because it feels
Me too.
like a season 2 episode. And I think a lot of that is because it was a reused phase 2 script, which they did some of in season 2. But I'm always surprised every time I look back at Devil's Due and I'm like, oh, wait, that was mid season 4. Like, that's a surprising time to have this. Like, that seems like an episode that it would have felt more at home in season 2, I think.
Completely. And it seems like the kind of thing that the show has moved beyond.
Right.
Like the show has matured so much that it feels like it's just out of place because it doesn't feel like it fits with the levels that this show has risen to. Yeah.
And by season 3, 4, and onward, I mean, the show felt a little more grounded than it did in the early seasons.
Yeah.
Where it was a little less cartoony. Whereas, fighting the devil does seem like something that would have come up earlier in the show, you know what I mean? Or, in the 70s when the story, I think, originated.
Yeah.
Right.
But I agree with you about that one.
I do have a Troy episode that I don't really care for, but it's not Deanna. It's Loxana.
Okay.
And that's Half a Life. And I kind of feel like that's a turning point for that character in this show. She's been such a fun, irreverent, off the cuff kind of character up until this point, and now she's not. And I don't think they ever get back to what she had been before, where she's the fun and free-spirited and really sort of challenging character that she had been. She gets very maudlin from this point on. And so, sorry, Elaine, to spoil you on the future for Loxana, but and it's a fine episode. It's decent enough, but it just gets, I don't know, it's like being in the mud. It just, I don't know. It just feels like you're trapped in molasses or something.
Right. Yeah. One that I'll say that, I mean, I don't think it's a bad episode necessarily, but I think that it's just some good ideas that were not executed as well as they could have been, was the host. Because obviously they saw in that the Trill thing is a pretty good idea. There's better ways that we could do that, but I don't think that it comes off as well in that episode. And I think that, I mean, obviously in Deep Space Nine they took it in some very different directions. But that I think it worked a lot better, and I think it shows its age, the age of where Star Trek was at that time when they had the whole ending where Odan is now a woman, and that's the way it was executed. It looking back at it from 2024, it feels very much like 1990.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's not a standout in any way.
Right.
And it should be, because it's a great concept, just like you said. And it has some really cool ideas in it. And for introducing a species, I mean, you don't know this at the time, but it's going to go on to be a key Star Trek species. They have to lay that egg. They have to plant that seed for something else to come along later and make it grow into the grand tree that it became. But man, it is not a good seed.
Well, I do think that the Trill are a good example, though. Star Trek, we get so caught up with the details, and it's really easy to be like, well, why is this a different color than it used to be? You know what I mean? Whereas the Trill is a good example where they're like, let's just take the good ideas from it and ignore everything we don't like. Because in that one, obviously the Trill have very different makeup, the biology and the whole. That one, it's more like Odan is just possessing Riker's body. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like the Trill couldn't use transporters, and that was a big. And obviously for Deep Space Nine, they're like, well, we're not even gonna bother explaining any of it. We're just gonna change what we want because it's our TV show, and it worked out great. I don't think anyone now would argue that. I don't think there are fans who are Trill purists who want the original Trill instead of the Dax style Trill. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Keith might be.
Well, the one thing that more so than the physical attributes which they changed
Yeah.
is the fact that they know so little about their physiology when they clearly have been a Federation member for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, Curzan and Benjamin Sisko knew each other, so surely they would know more about their physiology than they know in this episode by this point, a year or two before Deep Space Nine. I mean, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
That's because Deep Space Nine doesn't care about canon.
But again, you know,
that's just one of the many reasons that Deep Space Nine is not true Star Trek.
Non-canon. And then if anyone's a new watcher or listener, DS9 we're obsessed with.
Oh, God,
yes.
It is the peak of all Star Trek.
Absolutely.
So don't add
us. We're almost there. We're almost there.
I was going to say, I'll get there eventually.
Sorry for spoiling you, Elaine. The trill come back.
I have seen all of Discovery, so
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's another one that jumps out at anybody, positive or negative? It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad one.
Yeah.
The Mind's Eye.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I love their take on the Manchurian Candidate, and at the time,
100%.
It talk about me being an obsessed Star Trek fan. You know, the all hyped up because this is late in the season, all hyped up for the 25th anniversary, all the stuff coming on. And here we get an episode that heightens the whole Romulan situation to another degree.
Mm-hmm.
A hint at a returning character, just a hint of it, even though watching it in high def now, it's much more obvious that the voice doesn't match whoever the shadow is.
Yeah.
But the voice is obvious who it is, hearing it now. But still, I mean, this was like the kind of stuff I ate up like crazy back then. And of course, it would tie into the season cliffhanger. So it, to me, was ramping up the whole canon storyline to almost a feverish pitch. So it was a very important episode for me at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's another one?
We can talk about Final Mission, where Will Wheaton has left the series, but he's always very good when he's just with Patrick Stewart. His his scenes where it's just the two of them, they're always really, really good. And so it was nice to see him have some, alone scene sounds kind of wrong, but but to be able to have, a good episode to go out on. So
absolutely.
And Will Wheaton also talked about how much he grew as an actor learning from working with Patrick Stewart. So I think you could tell he's really enjoying these scenes.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate for Next Gen, but I mean, the truth is, at the time, they really played more into Wes's relationship with the male characters than with his mom.
I know, true.
But that being the case, I think that he's got a strong relationship with Picard, and I think that's a really good episode for him. Now, what do you think about the show writing off Will Wheaton?
From what I understand, he was wanting to go because he thought he was missing out on other roles, which I think he's also said a little bit in hindsight that he kind of wishes he hadn't left because those big movie magic roles didn't really appear. But I don't know, as much as I love him, I don't know that I missed him that much in the rest of the season.
Right.
But he wasn't in every episode to start with. Like he may be in the episode, but he's just pushing buttons somewhere. He's not in the episode. So it's not.
Yeah.
I'm not missing him.
He was main cast, but he wasn't really main cast ever.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think he was, but I think that I wish we could have gotten more Will Wheaton during the more sophisticated Next Generation years when he would have been written better. So much of his tenure is when they were treating him as the shucks boy genius on the show that would save the ship. That I think fans, with reason, had a negative reaction to in some cases because you're not watching Star Trek to see the 15-year-old who acts like an 11-year-old saving the Enterprise every week, and I think that really sort of tainted the early, but I mean, in the first couple of seasons, everyone kind of sucked.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's not as if that's Will Wheaton's fault or Wesley Crusher's fault, but I would have
Right.
loved to have seen what they could have done with him as growing into a young officer on the ship, and continue growing into a young man, and into adulthood on the ship. I mean, just looking at what they did on DS9. I'm sorry, Elaine, I know you haven't seen it yet.
You're
But with
right.
Jake Sisko, the way he and Nog both
Yeah.
grew into young adult men on the show, and I would love to have seen Wesley have that kind of an arc on the show.
I wonder if DS9 doing that, if they learned, like, it might have been better for Wesley Crusher if there was another young person on the Enterprise, so he had a buddy, because he was all by himself. I know there were other kids, but they were kids like in school and whatnot. They weren't working on the ship, so he was kind of by himself in that situation. If he had had somebody else to talk with that wasn't a grown-up parent figure, then maybe he would have been better off staying on the Enterprise.
That would have been a really good angle to go with, because if he had other people his age, he's still alone, because intellectually he is so far above anybody else, and he in some ways is more mature than any other kid that age, but at the same time less mature than other kids at that age. And I feel like having him not being able to fit in with his peer group would have been a really cool character study. And him, trying to relate to the adults more, because intellectually he's on their level. He wants to be on their level professionally. I think that would have been, there's so many angles that you could go with his character that they just never did much with him. He just never seemed to have any consequence at all in the storylines,
Yeah, and I would have loved for him to get better development. I understand. I mean, for his perspective too of why he left the show. I mean, he is a young actor. He was Stand By Me was a big movie. I mean, if I'm his agent, I'm also thinking like, there's other opportunities out there for you. You don't want to waste your formative years on this show. And he doesn't know that there's only 3 seasons left, and what movie roles will or will not be there. You know what I mean? He's flying blind there. So. No, I get it, and I think this is a good end for him. But yeah, I think that I don't miss him from the show when he's gone, but I do, in retrospect, look at it as a missed opportunity for the show.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Another one that I want to kind of highlight is it's another weird one, and I always love the weird episodes, and TNG particularly gets more weird as it goes, and season 7 has got some doozies of weird episodes. But a sort of a step toward that is Identity Crisis, where Geordi turns into this alien creature, and he's like drawn to the planet from which these creatures come. And I think that's such a cool idea.
Right.
It's not one that I've watched in a really long time, so I don't even know that I remember all the details about it, but I do remember really, really loving that episode.
Yeah, we rewatched it just recently. When
I was about to say, I actually remember that one.
Yeah, because we did an episode not too long ago on our show about episodes that people never talk about, and that was one that we rewatched in anticipation of that. And one thing that struck me was those flashback scenes in the videos when they're wearing the older TNG uniforms.
Oh yeah,
and I think that was just a clever way to make use of the fact that they had made that change on the show, but also just make the world feel a little more lived in and real. It's the same kind of thing they did on the original series when they used the flashbacks of the menagerie to show an earlier period. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of a thing here, where I love that Star Trek can do that. And I think that was a really smart move for them. And I agree with you. I think that's it's a really pretty cool episode.
Yeah.
Another one that we really should mention, and that's the annual Barclay episode. In this case, Nth Degree.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite Barclay episode, but I think he was introduced in season 3, and he becomes a focus episode each season after that. And this one is an okay one. It's good. It's got some good ideas, but it's not one of my favorites.
Well, there's a couple of big Klingon episodes in this season.
Yeah, we got to talk about that cliffhanger before we end.
Well, let's hit Reunion before we hit the cliffhanger.
Yes, definitely.
Reunion is a big Worf episode. What did you guys think of Reunion?
I had seen that one before. I keep finding ones I had, but I had only seen it because we were watching certain episodes to be ready to watch an episode of O Station Trek.
Okay, that's a good reason.
I agree.
Like I think there was
That's the best reason to watch Star Trek.
I think there was like a DS9 episode or something, and Matt was like, but you need to watch these before we get to that one.
Yeah,
Well, that's
sure.
not going to make any sense whatsoever. So I have seen this one before, and I do love it. I just really hate that I have forgotten her name has to die. There's no reason.
Kalar.
There was no reason for her to die. That just
Agreed.
rude.
Yeah, I agree with you, and also it makes more narrative sense for Worf to have a son that he never sees if the son is off with his mother.
Yes.
Than
Right.
the reasons they came up with on the show.
Yes.
Which don't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
Which always makes just Worf seem like a terrible person and a bad dad.
Yes.
Whereas,
Well, he kind of is. So.
I know, but I think keeping her alive, I think would have been better for the show because you could have her come back. And
Absolutely.
it's an ongoing storyline for Worf, but also the fact that he has this son is for me, it's more compelling and more sympathetic to Worf if the son is off with his mother and they're just not together, right?
Right.
As opposed to like, well, your mom just died. I've got my parents you can go live with back on Dalton.
Yeah.
And they do some weird stuff with Alexander. It's just it goes in some weird directions. I don't really like his character arc at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to redemption then.
Yes. So we end on another big cliffhanger, and this time it's part of our Klingon soap opera that's been going on for a while now. What did y'all think, Lane, particularly because this is your first time seeing it? What did you although this one was one of the ones that was shown in the theater, wasn't it? So you may have seen it before.
I don't know that I did. See this one.
Okay.
No.
What did you think of it?
I liked it, but then it was also I was able to see Gowron, and like I'd seen him in all the memes and stuff, so I know that he knew who he was. So it wasn't like it. So yeah, but it was nice to see the action to go with the picture of the face and the eyes. So
and the eyes are the key element here.
Yeah,
he has got the craziest damn eyes I have ever seen. He is probably my second favorite Klingon character in all of Star Trek. He is amazing.
It's the eyes and the voice.
The voice.
Make Gowron. And he's phenomenal.
You know, we were talking recently about people who come in to play a Klingon character, and the ones who really get it are the ones who really throw themselves physically into the character and really behave like a Klingon. And not all the people do that. You know, they just talk like a human and act like a human, but they've got some stuff stuck on their face. This guy, Robert O'Reilly, man, he gets Klingons, and he is not afraid to inhabit fully what a Klingon means. And he's just incredible.
And Star Trek very much has roots in like theatrical acting, going all the way back to the original series. And I think looking at Robert O'Reilly, I mean, he definitely, you can tell, is a stage actor and performs that way. I mean, and Patrick Stewart does as well, but with a different vibe to him than Robert O'Reilly has. But I mean, there's a bit of trend in television over the last 60 years towards naturalism, and Robert O'Reilly did not know about that.
He did not get the memo.
Right.
It is so true. But that's what makes his character so hugely successful. I think if he had got the memo, it would not be the same character. It would not be nearly as effective on screen, where he's a little bit shorter in stature, but he comes across as this huge, larger than life, really imposing character.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, he's so amazing.
And in particular for a character you're playing on a prosthetics. Like the prosthetics do not hold Robert O'Reilly down.
Right. Yeah.
In no way. So Matt, what did you think of it coming back to it again this time after having seen it before?
Yeah, I mean, it was one that I knew what to expect, because even amongst those episodes, it was ones that got rewatched a lot. So it was one that it wasn't a whole lot new for me. I guess it was. Going back to what you said with Robert O'Reilly playing the role, and there's an unpredictability. He's always got this craziness about him. You never know what to expect, how to expect him to react to any stimulus.
Yes.
And that's the brilliance of Gowron, is that it's like, oh, they've gone and okay, it's like Duras was so evil, we had to get this crazy guy in instead to be the chancellor because otherwise we got, we know they're going to be conspiring with Romulans,
right?
But they get into the whole political thing. I mean, the Duras family, Duras is dead, but here we have his family and the sisters, Lursa and Bator. They are also wonderful characters.
Love them.
And just the way they are different from each other. One's much more lustful, and one is much more matronly, but conniving matronly. It's just I love those characters.
Yes,
and it was at this point I realized the Klingons were such a fully realized race in Star Trek, where it was a race of individual characters who were very different.
Yes,
and it was all in front of you in this episode, all these different characters.
100%. Elaine, how did you react to the cliffhanger, the big reveal of who's behind everything?
I don't remember how. It's been so long since I watched it.
It's a blonde-haired Romulan.
Well, no. I remember saying I remember I was kind of like going, wait a minute. So yeah, but I don't know what to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's still some
I like
details
that
to learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So are you excited to find out what happens next?
Yes, because it's been a number of weeks since we watched it.
Yes, it has.
We stopped watching because it was like, okay, I don't want to watch any other season until we talk about this because
your brain won't hold it, separate it. Yep.
No, and the brain didn't hold as much as I wanted it to. Anyway, so if I started putting season 5 on top of that, it would have been a lost cause.
Yeah. When do you think you'll be starting season 5?
Oh,
I'd hope to get. I planned on one tonight.
Okay, we can watch one tonight.
Matt's got it queued up in the next room.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Right on. Oh,
we've got just a few moments left, but I mean, is there a final thought or an episode we didn't mention that someone wants to get out there before we wrap this up?
I don't know, man. I think we hit all the good ones and all the bad ones. Everything else is kind of mediocre.
Right.
Well, there was always Galaxy's Child where he got to finally meet Dr. Brahms and be creepy.
Oh, awkward.
Awkward. I don't think we're trying to be creepy. It just came off as creepy, but I don't think that was his.
It doesn't. Yeah, Geordie's motives don't hold up very well.
No, they don't.
But the space creature was cool.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys for joining us. This has been so much fun. I love when you guys. I'm sorry, Alan. Would I talk over?
No. You go right ahead.
No, I was gonna say thank you guys for coming on again.
Thank you.
Tell folks where people can find more of you.
Are you waiting for me to go first?
Yeah, you know all. Okay. You know the spiel better than I do.
You can find us on Facebook at Elaine and Matt What TV, where I chronicle what we're watching on TV, and you can also find me everywhere monkeying around.
How about you, Matt?
Same place that you see her. I comment a lot on Earth Station Trek. If you do follow our episode watches of Next Generation, we do a lot of commenting as we watch it, so it's almost like a live watch. So anybody interested in, like, we know we're coming up to a particular season 5 episode you're interested in, pay attention because we'll be discussing it, probably analyzing it way too much, especially when Keith gets involved. When Keith gets involved, we're writing basically dissertations for college.
I learn a lot though, so
I do too. His knowledge of the science is amazing. Keith has taught me a lot.
All right, Alan, where can people find more of you?
Monkeying around that's not cosmiccreative.com, kozmiccreative.com. That's my website. You can find my books. You can find my other podcasts, which include Doctor Who A to Z, which is a great little show. We're on a little bit of a hiatus right now because it's holidays, and we're going to be picking up again next week with a review of the newest Christmas episode. And Modern Musicology, which is also on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're going to be coming back at beginning of January with a show all about our favorite and least favorite covers of David Bowie songs.
Awesome. And you joke about being on Monkeying Around, but you actually are on the next episode of Monkeying Around. So if people listen to Monkeying Around, you'll hear Alan on there very soon.
It was such a good episode.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to listen back to it.
Me too. All right, Veronica, where can people find more of us?
My brain just broke. Hold on.
Try Felton.
Feltnerdy.com.
That's right. And if you're
Alan threw me off. It's his fault.
I'm so sorry.
And if you're in the Atlanta area, we've got a couple of shows coming up for adult audiences, both at the Red Light Cafe. One is a benefit show for charity. It's benefits PFLAG Atlanta, which is an LGBTQ charity here in Atlanta, and it's called Conversations About Love and Kindness, which is sort of half performances, variety show, and half TED Talk of people sort of with turbulent times coming up in the U.S., people talking about their feelings and about what people can do, and some different artists coming up on stage to do little pieces, and we're performing in that. And then our next show, which is a collaboration with a duo called Bean and Bear, who we've been trying to work with for some time. We finally got our schedules worked out. So you can see Felt Nerdy x Bean and Bear live at the Red Light Cafe on January the 12th. And tickets are on sale for that now if you follow Felt Nerdy and Dirty on any social media. Where else can people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
And do you have a closing for us this week?
I am not a merry man.
Perfect.
Yes. Great job.
And join us live, folks. You can find us on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, talking about the latest Star Trek when there's a new Star Trek episode or a legacy Star Trek topic. And I believe next week is going to be our best Treks of 2024, where we're talking about our favorite episodes from Star Trek in 2024. And we've got 40 episodes of Star Trek to choose from, which is the last year in a while that we've had that, but also it's sort of a bittersweet year because we had 3 Star Trek series finales in the same year for the first time.
Crazy.
So it's going to be an interesting episode for sure, but join us Thursday evenings on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern or on your favorite podcast platform.
All right. Y'all take care. Join us again next Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern. See you then.